Okay, let's continue our discussion. Let's look at another example. So in this question, it asks you what is the opportunity cost of each lamp. Now let's look at this table. This table shows us the possible combination of lamps and so far we can produce, right? So in order to calculate the opportunity cost of lamp, and the easiest way we do is move from the top to the bottom. Okay, and so you can look at from A to B, or if you like, you can look at A to F, or any combination. As you're going to see, once you done the calculation, so essentially here, so the old answer is going to be the same, largely because we have a straight line in terms of a PBA. Okay, so now let's see what happened. So if we look at A versus B, again, the opportunity cost, the way we calculate opportunity cost, we use cost divided by benefit. And then so here, what is the benefit? You gain 50 minus 1 lamps. And what do you give up? So that is your cost. You give up 1,000 minus 800 so far. And then so from here, so we can find out what is the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is going to be C, right? Because this 200 divided by 50. So that gives you a opportunity cost of 4. Right? So this is these practice questions. Now we have another practice questions. Okay? Usually in class, I will pair you with your fellow students to work on this fun exercise. But today, so we probably skip that. But if you like, you can do that later yourself with your friends. But essentially, this is just use a real life example, show you the opportunity cost and show you the idea of specialization. Like in this example, someone may be specialized in drawing happy face, but somebody else may specialize in drawing elephants. Right? So now let me explain to you why sometimes the PBF is not a straight line. Like we have seen so far, the PBF looks more like here. Let me draw a straight line. This is what we have seen so far. But in reality, we may have seen a PBF like this line. And so mathematically, this is a concave curve. And so what is particular about this line or this curve is that, so the slope, if you draw a slope of this line, you will find out the slope is increasing. Okay, so this absolute value. All right, so here you can see the curve is flatter, but the curve becomes steeper and steeper. All right, and actually, so the slope of this curve gives us the opportunity cost. Okay, so this is the slope of this curve represents. So now the curve becomes steeper and steeper, meaning the opportunity cost will increase. And then particularly, so this opportunity cost will increase once we move to this direction. Now, we need to understand what is the economics behind this increasing opportunity cost. Let's start from here, from this point. right? Let's call E, and let's call this point F. Okay. So at the point E, meaning so the business allocate all resource in one particular product, which is Dreamliners. On the other hand, F means so the business allocate resource in the other particular product, which is small jet. Right? Now just imagine if we start from E and we want to move to this direction. Meaning, so we want to expand into a new business market, which is small jet. Remember, we start from Dreamliners. We only produce Dreamliners. Right? Now we want to expand in a new market, which is small jet. Now just ask yourself, if you are the manager for this business and you want to explore a new market, and certainly you need to allocate some of your engineers, your salesperson, your manufacturer workers into this new sector. Now ask yourself, if you are the manager for this business, who will you ask to do this job? Your most skilled worker, or your most talented engineer, or your least skilled worker, or your least talented engineer? The answer is definitely you want your best people to work in this new field, right? So that you have advantage, so you can win this new market. Okay? If that is the case, so that's going to give you a opportunity cost, meaning so you can quickly move into a new market, right? And so with rather small opportunity costs, right? Because those guys are very, very talented. Okay. Now, once we enter this market, we gain a share, so we produce 20, and we only lose 5 because those guys are very adaptive, so they enter the new market. Right? Now, if you want to expand further, so for example, you want to enter the entire new market in this simple example, and then so who will you allocate to produce the rest of 20? Apparently, the rest of your employees, including those less talented or those less skilled workers, right? And then certainly for them, the opportunity cost or the cost of producing a new product will increase, right? So that explains so why we may have a PPF is outward like we see in these slides. But essentially, they just says the opportunity cost of producing small jet will increase once we allocate more resource into the production of small jet, or once we shift towards in that particular product. Right. So this is different from the earlier PPF we saw. So in there, over there, the PPF is a straight line. You can calculate the opportunity cost, doesn't change with the quantity you produce. Okay. Now, so this PPF can also help us to understand some important concept in macroeconomics. Okay. So, for example, economic growth. So how we understand economic growth? Okay, so let's just go back. This is where we start. this original PBF, right? And you can think about, maybe you can think about this is 1900 in the United States. And of certainty, you may want to change this to some different goods. Again, this is a simple model to represent a complicated world, right? And so this is the combination of goods we can produce as a country. Now, over time, so we will expand. Right? Over time, we will expand. Now, in 2000, we will have a different PBF, right? And then, so if you compare two points, A versus E, okay? And so then you can see, so A versus E, what's the difference? Now we can produce more in both goods, right? And so if you careful enough, you may see, so actually the slope of this curve may change as well. So that reflects the technological progress, right? Now we come back to the earlier example we discussed, right? So you will extend it in an island. And then, so you have your time, your effort. If you spend all your time in mango, you have 200. Otherwise, you have 100. So that's where we start. Now, suddenly you get bored and you become creative. And you had a brilliant idea. You invent a clam rack that doubles your clam production. So what that means on this diagram means, so now you are going to produce this much of clams. And this immediate means your production possibility frontier will shift to this dotted line, right? And there are two things we can learn from this diagram. Number one, so we have an outward move of our PBF. And this is similar to what we saw in previous slides. This is essentially economic growth. This is number one, because suddenly we are able to produce more, right, in both goods. This is number one. Now, number two, and here, the source of economic growth coming from new technology, right? So this new technology is represented by this invention of clam rack, right? Okay, so this is this example. So help us understand PBF. Oh, by the way, so if we calculate the opportunity cost of clams, and you will find out here when we look at the original PBF, the opportunity cost of clams will be 200 divided by 100. Right? By the way, this is 100. This is 200. This is 200. Now, with this new technology, the opportunity cost becomes, so again, you still give up 200 mango, but now you gain 200 clams. And you can see from here, the new technology reduced the cost of producing clams from 2 to 1. But this 2 and 1 is in terms of mango. Right? So this new technology reduced the cost of clam. But at the same time means this new technology is going to make mango production more expensive. Right? And that means before the mango is going to cost 1/2 clams, now will cost 1 clam. The mango becomes more expensive, right? So this cost is in relative term. And from this simple example, you should smell the idea of trade. Why is that? Look at here. So we move from this original, this after technology progress. And then so from here, you can see the mango becomes, relatively speaking, becomes more expensive, right? Because it used to be 1/2, now becomes 1. On the other, at the same time, clam becomes less expensive. It used to be 2 to 1, right? And then so from here, so you should immediately realize, so after the technology progress, you may want produce more clams and produce less mango, because clam is cheaper for you to make and mango is more expensive for you to make. Now, if you extend this to international economy, so for example, there's another island close by, you can trade with. And then from this example, you should realize, so it's better for you to trade with other islands, right? So, and then here's how are you going to trade? You may want to trade clams, because now it's become cheaper, for mango, because now it becomes more expensive. All right. And so later we'll have one chapter to expand this idea a little bit further. For now, if you can understand how to calculate the opportunity cost and how this opportunity cost change with technological progress, is good enough. Okay. Now, to summarize what we have discussed, we use a PBF to understand economic growth. What can cause economic growth, or what can bring us economic growth? There are two possibilities. Either through a better technology, as we have just seen, right? So that essentially just shift, like look at here. So that essentially just move from this solid line to this dashed line. Nothing else changed. The only thing has happened is a new technology. Alternatively, so we may able to push the production possibility from here by increasing factor of production, right? And say, for example, so you spend more time, so that's factor of production. Say, for example, so you use more tools, that's factor of production, so that you can, given the technology, you can produce more mango, or at the same time, you can produce more clams if you wish, right? But now, so next I'm going to explain to you what are the factors of productions, right? So there are 3 different factors of productions that we can use. I mean, as a society, we can use to improve the production or to expand our production possibility frontier. Okay? So before I explain to you the details of those 3 factors of production, let's just go back to previous slides, kind of draw a diagram to show you the idea of these 2 possibilities. Possibility number 1, so we move to here, right? Due to technology progress. Possibility number 2, so we just simply expand. Okay, and so why we can expand is because we have using more resources, right? Okay, so let's take a few minutes break and we continue.